Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. RHONJ Ruelas sends terrifying message to enemies. RHONJ house husband Ruelas has sent a terrifying message to all of his enemies via his social media. Of course, he proceeded to delete it from his Instagram stories, which would have expired after 24 hours. So what did Teresa Giudice's man have to say? Keep reading for more details. Ruelas has never been a fan favorite, despite what Teresa Giudice and her daughters have had to say. They praise him, and what an amazing man he is, but viewers see a different side. He is a hothead and says things that are in extremely poor taste. Recently, he shared advice that he gave his 4 stepdaughters regarding wearing skimpy clothing. Prior to that, it came out that Lewis takes each girl out on individual dates. This gave followers the ick, but that just added to how he had the RHONJ cast investigated in season 13 with no shame or remorse. However, in the season 14 finale, Lewis sank to a new low when he wished suffering upon co-star Margaret Joseph's son. He was speaking to Teresa as she was leaving to meet with the women and had this to say. "Tell her to stay away from our family. And you know what? I hope Margaret and her family suffer. I hope her F-King son suffers." Viewers were appalled by this, as was Margaret when she saw it at the alternate reunion. She had production pause the moment so she could process it, but Teresa defended her husband. Dolores Catania, who has always been neutral, even let Teresa know that this was not a good situation. He tried to issue an apology, but he didn't appear to take true accountability. Now, according to Reality T, Ruelas posted a strong message to his enemies on his social media. It appears Lewis is saying he would not have any mercy on his enemies, so he will keep taking them down at every turn. He did recruit famed PI Bo Dietl to dig up dirt on the cast and allegedly go after the cast's kids. Some children were not even featured or mentioned on the show, yet they have been implicated regardless. After RHONJ fans caught wind of what Ruelas had posted, they were not impressed. More so, they shamed him for even doing this and noted how he was always doing the wrong thing. Lewis' brain is upside down. He is constantly making the wrong decision. Their descent into total obscurity is fun to watch. Fame is quite a drug. Just when you think he can't be creepier, he doubles down with this. From wearing Nano's pajamas to encouraging Teresa's daughters to wear thongs and short skirts, and now this. He's going to be the downfall of Ter and her losing her Bravo paycheck. He's giving wanted mobster vibes, just scummy. One did note that they post creepy stuff like this all of the time, but Lewis is under a microscope. Therefore, he is always going to catch heat, but it is his track record that is cause for concern. The tension in the air was palpable as the camera zoomed in on Ruelas, the husband of Teresa Giudice, a central figure on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. His eyes, dark and intense, bore into the screen, sending a chilling message to anyone who dared to cross him or his family. The Real Housewives franchise had seen its fair share of drama, but this was different. This wasn't just about petty feuds or designer-clad catfights. Ruelas was ready to protect what was his at all costs, and it was clear he wasn't playing by the usual rules. For weeks, rumors had swirled around Lewis. Stories of his questionable business dealings, former relationships, and his alleged dark side dominated the gossip columns. Rivals on the show had begun whispering about his temper and his mysterious connections. But Lewis remained largely silent, choosing not to engage in the public mudslinging. That is, until now. It started with a cryptic post on his social media, a black and white image of a wolf staring down a pack of hyenas. The caption read, "Wolves don't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. Watch closely. Fans immediately knew this was directed at the cast members who had been bad-mouthing him behind his back. But it wasn't just a message to them, it was a declaration. Luis Ruelas was a wolf, and his enemies? They were merely sheep. The message sent shockwaves through the RHONJ fandom. Everyone wanted to know who Luis was referring to. Melissa Gorga, Teresa's estranged sister-in-law, was one of the most obvious suspects. Her icy relationship with Teresa had only grown colder with Luis's arrival on the scene. Joe Gorga, Melissa's husband and Teresa's brother, had been vocal about his distrust of Luis. But then there were others, Margaret Josephs, who had previously questioned Luis's past on camera, and even Jackie Goldschneider, who was known for her sharp tongue and willingness to stir the pot. The target could have been any one of them, or all of them. The following week, during filming, Luis's mood seemed even darker. Gone was the man who tried to play nice for the cameras. Instead, he embodied a brooding intensity that cast a shadow over every interaction. At a dinner party hosted by Dolores Catania, the tension boiled over. The housewives were gathered around an elegantly set table, but there was nothing elegant about the conversation. Snide comments were exchanged, and as the wine flowed, so did the insults. It was Margaret who finally pushed Luis over the edge. "I just think it's odd, Luis," she began, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "So many people from your past have had, let's say, less than flattering things to say about you. Isn't it time you address the elephant in the room?" Luis, who had been calmly sipping his wine, set his glass down with a deliberate thud. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. He leaned forward, his voice low but laced with menace. "Margaret," he said, his gaze unblinking, "you've spent your whole life thinking you're untouchable, haven't you? You think your words don't have consequences, but you have no idea who you're playing with." Margaret scoffed, attempting to maintain her composure, but the crack in her bravado was evident. "Is that a threat, Luis?" Luis smirked. "It's a warning." The other housewives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the danger in the room. Teresa, who usually jumped in to defend her husband, remained quiet, letting Luis handle the situation his way. She knew this side of him, the side that would do anything to protect his family, and she wasn't going to stand in his way. "What do you mean, a warning?" Melissa piped up, her voice trembling slightly. She and Joe had been at odds with Teresa for months, but Luis had always kept a distance from the sibling rivalry. Now it seemed he was ready to take a more active role. Luis turned his attention to Melissa, his eyes narrowing. "You and your husband have been running your mouths about me for too long. I stayed silent out of respect for Teresa, but that stops now. You want to keep spreading lies? Keep trying to tear this family apart? I promise you, Melissa, you won't like what happens next." Joe, who had been silently fuming beside Melissa, finally exploded. "You think you can scare us, Luis? You think you can walk in here and threaten my family?" Luis didn't flinch. "I don't need to scare you, Joe, but you should be scared of what's coming if you don't stop." Dolores, ever the peacemaker, tried to diffuse the situation. Okay, everyone calm down. This is getting out of hand." But it was too late. The lines had been drawn. Luis had sent his message loud and clear. He was done being the nice guy. The gloves were off, and anyone who came for him or Teresa was going to pay the price. In the days that followed, the fallout from the dinner party was swift. Melissa and Joe found themselves isolated from the group, with many of the other housewives refusing to take sides. Margaret, who prided herself on being able to dish it out, found herself rattled in a way she hadn't been before. She wasn't used to men like Luis, men who didn't play by the unspoken rules of reality TV. As the season progressed, Louis's warning hung over the group like a dark cloud. Every conversation, every argument was tinged with the knowledge that Louis wasn't someone to be messed with. His message to his enemies was simple: cross me and you'll regret it. But the real question was, how far was Louis Ruelas willing to go to protect his family? And would his terrifying message be enough to keep his enemies at bay? Or would it only fan the flames of the drama that fueled the Real Housewives of New Jersey? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: Louis Ruelas had arrived, and he wasn't backing down.